What's up, everybody? This is Ahmed.
Luffy.
Wow, that was such a bad introduction. And this is the Brotherly Love podcast. How are y'all doing today? How are you doing today?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. A little busy today, but some days are like that.
That's true.
Yes, sir. Oh, I want to talk to you real quick.
Okay.
Did you see what happened yesterday with the NBA?
No.
Okay. So I want to provide a little bit of context for anyone who may not know. For me, at least, coronavirus wasn't real, quote unquote, until the NBA shut down.
That's
So,
for a lot of people.
I remember the day. It was March 11th. You know what I'm
You
saying?
know the exact date
Yes,
too.
bro.
Dang.
Because the games, you know what I'm saying? Like I watch games. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like an avid fan where it's like, oh my god, like, the Magic are playing the the Cavaliers. Like I gotta watch this on a Tuesday night. Like no, but if there's any sort of high level competition in sports, I'm with it. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if it's table tennis. I don't care if it's water polo. Like, if there's high level competition, I like it. And basketball is great because there's a lot of games, there's a lot of good teams, and there's a lot of like great matchups that happen just throughout the course of a normal week that you can just throw on the TV on the background and fall asleep to.
I also like it. I like watching basketball games a lot because not only is, adding on to what you were saying, it's very fast paced, and I like seeing the endurance and seeing like what their mind is going to and why they're doing certain plays. So it's really nice.
Yeah, I mean it's easier to map out than in football where like they have to sit there and draw for you the X's and the O's.
Mhm.
Basketball, like you can kind of see them fluidly move throughout the system. But I'd argue personally that soccer or football, quote unquote, is more fast paced than even basketball. The only reason basketball looks more fast paced is because it's a smaller court.
That's true.
But basketball has a lot of timeouts. There's still, in America, a lot of commercials.
So many.
When you're playing a soccer game, they just playing for 45 minutes. Ain't no commercials, ain't no timeouts, ain't no the ball go out of bounds, the clock's still running. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
that's
that's
fast paced. Like
That's true.
right. But regardless, back to the original story is the NBA shut down. And when the NBA shut down, I had heard about coronavirus before then, of course, because I watched the fucking news, right? But the severity of it, how serious was this issue? It didn't really hit me until, I have friends who I was talking to them and they were telling me before the NBA, they were telling me that, hey man, one, stocks are starting to drop off. The company, like, whatever, the company's telling us work from home. Like, I think this is some real shit's going down. I'm like, bruh, life is normal over here. So, like, I don't know what you're
For
talking
you.
Yeah, life is normal over here. I don't know what you're talking about. Then when the NBA shut down, I was like, holy shit, like,
Nani.
yeah, this is a multi-billion-dollar organization. Like, each team is worth billions of dollars. Ballmer bought the Clippers for like 2 point something billion dollars. Steve Ballmer.
Who's Steve Ballmer?
Steve Ballmer, he used to work at Microsoft, one of the top guys there. Not the top guy, obviously that's Gates, but one of the top guys there. And he ended up buying the Clippers from Donald Sterling, the guy who told his girlfriend,
And
you
says
can.
the N word.
Yeah, he was like, listen, you can fuck black dudes, just don't bring them around me.
He said that to his wife?
To his girlfriend.
Oh, his girlfriend.
Yeah, or his, yeah, his shoddy. That's about a fourth his age.
Okay, but continue.
So yesterday, the NBA, well, specifically the Bucks were playing the Magic yesterday, and the Bucks in particular, they were the first ones at least to say, we're not playing today. And this is there's playoffs right now. We're in playoff basketball. They redid the whole bubble. They teamed up with Disney World in Orlando so that they could, structure this whole thing. Like they have all the players there, everything like that. The Bucks yesterday were like, we're not playing.
No, it was so crazy. Before you continue, I was watching a basketball game. I forgot who against who. It was someone against Lakers. I forgot the other team.
The Clippers?
Yeah, it might have been the Clippers.
Or is it the series right now? They're playing the Blazers right now.
This was last weekend. like on a Saturday.
They might have been playing the Blazers still, like game 1 or something.
Possibly. I saw it was a virtual audience.
Oh yeah,
and that was the first time ever seeing that. And that just like, it surprised me a lot. But continue. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, some of those are real people, like tuned in, like they're zoomed in or whatever to the meeting. But
that's crazy.
So then following suit, Houston and OKC, their game got canceled yesterday or rescheduled, and then the Lakers and Trailblazers game, primetime game, 9 p.m. I think, their game got rescheduled as well. And so then going across, from the NBA, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And you know me, I live under a rock. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what is it, and it was, I believe his name was Jacob Blake.
Blank?
Yeah, Jacob Blake. So I had also never heard of this dude's name until yesterday.
I don't know who he is.
Another black dude who was shot by the police. Right.
Oh, actually, I think I might have heard about that.
Yeah, wasn't killed. But shot by the police in the back like 7 times or something.
Okay, now I know who we're talking about.
Yeah, and this is the unfortunate reality is that, to me, like, I've become so numb to this because I am a black man that Jacob Blake is, in my mind, unfortunately, George Floyd, Philando Castile, Trayvon Martin.
Mm-hmm.
It just becomes another one of those realities of my life, to the point where it's like you just kind of begin to disregard them. Just like I had disregarded this and I didn't pay this any mind until the NBA shut down. Then it gets brought back up. And they're at a point right now where they had a meeting last night and the NBA players are split pretty much. The Bucks, the Bucks, I said the Cavs. The Bucks, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Raptors, which are basically the top 4 teams in the playoffs. They have the best chance of actually winning the championship. All 4 of them said that they want to cancel the season. The other teams want to play through the season and finish it out.
Now, just as a question, are they canceling it because of coronavirus or because of the death of James Blake?
No, not coronavirus. So coronavirus, people thought, here's the funny thing, people thought coronavirus would be the demise of the bubble, of the NBA bubble. They thought that there's no way these players are going to be in here and not bring any hose to the bubble. Or,
I forgot the rules about those.
Yeah, or they were like, this bubble is so stupid. Like, you're saying that the Disney employees can leave and come back. And I remember hearing this, like, back before the bubble. And I was like, bro, y'all are stupid. Like, like, y'all are so stupid. Like, yeah, they are going to be around Disney employees who aren't going to quarantine and who are going to... It's a chance that Disney employee might be a carrier. You know what I'm saying? Of the virus and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know all the intricacies of the protocols that they had in place. But I just had in my mind that they, like, given what I had seen, I have watched, like, JaVale McGee's, Matisse Thybulle. Both of them are basketball players. They post vlogs. Both of them are really nice vlogs, too, on YouTube. Just documenting their experience, like, going into the bubble. Because no one's ever done or seen something like this before. This is basically like
This is history.
It is. It's an experiment. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've never taken a group of people and been like, all right, you guys are going to, like, it's almost like summer league for adults. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And like seeing what are the health effects of, like, yo, is it possible that no one in here will get coronavirus? And like, it's true. Until today, like, there's been no outbreak in the bubble. And I never expected there to be completely honest with you, given like just their testing protocols and like the way they were going about it. Regardless, sorry, got off track a little bit. So we're pretty much at a point where today, kind of like, we'll probably find out whether the rest of the NBA season is going to even continue or not. And it's very interesting because when the players were trying to go back, there was a very big discussion happening. I remember Kyrie Irving, Dwight Howard. There's a lot of also other players who decided to opt out of returning to the bubble. They said, "No, I'm not going." And some of them had reasons. Like Avery Bradley, he just delivered a child. He plays on the Lakers. He was like, "I'm not going into the bubble. My wife just had a child. Like, I'm gonna stay here and raise my child this season."
That's understandable.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? There's other people who maybe they had a health thing, or I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. But what I do know is that the center of the discussion focused on this idea that if the players go back, does it normalize things to the point where people don't care anymore about the main issues at hand? If you tune into an NBA game today, you'll see that there is no escape from politics in sports anymore. You know, like, people a lot of times turn to sports as an outlet, as a escape from the day-to-day bullshit. It's like, okay, I can
Yeah.
leave for a little bit, a couple hours of my life, just, see and watch high-level entertainment. It's fun, it's entertaining. And now, during this fun and entertainment, they're being confronted with a lot of the social and political issues. I'm not arguing whether this is good or bad. This is just fact. This is what's happening. And
So what's your question? I apologize because
there's
I'm trying to
I had to
understand
provide
and
the
connect
context, yeah.
everything, especially with James Blake. I'm just trying to
Jacob.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Jacob Blake, and connect all of this together. So what's your question?
Yeah, I mean, well, I had a lot of questions actually, but
Okay.
I have to provide the context. Like, the players decided not to enter at first, right? They were having the difficulty on deciding whether to resume the season in the bubble or not, because they were questioning whether them returning to play would return a sense of normalcy that would undermine the movements that are happening outside of the bubble. Do you think that that was true? Meaning, do you think that when they decided to go back to playing, even in... Yeah, go ahead and answer that.
Okay. Do I think that them deciding not to play?
No.
Okay. Because at first you're about to give me a loaded question. So just say it again. I apologize.
Do you think that them deciding to play undermined the Black Lives Matter movement?
Okay. That could be a yes or no answer. A lot of people would state, yeah, it undermines it because a lot of people are now focusing on the NBA and what's going on in the playoffs, and they're not shedding light to what's going on, in the Black Lives Matter movement, where not only Jacob Blake, but I'm pretty sure there's like 3 or 4 other people. Well, I haven't really been on social media that much, but that have been killed by police officers. You know what I'm saying? And then there can be another side where it's like, well, no, like, majority of people in the NBA actually stand for Black Lives Matter, and they showcase it. I'm not sure if this was in the NFL or in the NBA, but I'm pretty sure there were some teams that kneeled before a game, and some teams that opted out because they, like you were saying, we don't want to play because of what's going on outside. It's a difficult question, because I think most players' intent is to live their lives and to represent what is going on outside the world. Like, I know a lot of NBA players do discuss these things and talk about it publicly. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, so it's hard to dedicate your time to only one thing when there's other things that needs to be done. I'm not saying the NBA needs to, have things playing. No, I'm just saying in general, there's a lot of things going on in the world and things need to constantly be going.
So is basketball one of those things, though?
Personally, no. Because I'll be real, I'm not the kind of guy that's like, hey, I want to watch the Lakers game. I want to watch the Miami Heat. I want to watch the Clippers. I want to watch, I'm not that kind of guy. But if someone's like, hey, do you want to watch it with me? Yeah, sure. It's not really my thing, but I'll watch it. But do I think that there needs to be a focus on what's going on politically, and for there to be a stance of, well, not necessarily police brutality, because everyone knows that police brutality is awful. But more so, like, there needs to be a reform in the police academy, so that these things don't happen constantly. Because like you said, this has been a point in my life since middle school. Trayvon Martin got killed when I was in middle school, 7th or 8th grade. And I remember when I first heard it, I was shocked for like 4 or 5 days. I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. That was the first time I ever heard of a black kid getting shot and killed by, community policing.
Really?
And at the time, yeah. And it got, well, not necessarily the first time, but I think Trayvon Martin was the spark for Black Lives Matters movement, because he was the one that got showcased out of everybody else. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but he was the one that got really showcased. So after that, it became kind of a normal thing, like every 2 days or so, it's like someone's name would, have a hashtag or whatever, and I wouldn't be surprised. And there's only so much emotional, what's the word? I don't know the actual word, but there's only so much emotionalness I can have for it until it becomes like clockwork. It's already in my brain.
So what do you think is gonna happen today?
What's today? Today's the 28th.
Well, I'm not talking about, bro.
I know. 27th. Okay.
I'm talking about what we've been talking off of.
More than likely they're gonna cancel the season. That's how I think it's gonna happen.
I mean, not like. I mean, what do you think the ramification? Because it doesn't matter to me, honestly, if they cancel it or not. And I'm not talking about from a sports perspective. I'm talking about from a
political perspective,
social impact perspective. The shot's been fired, in my eyes, by them basically saying that they'll strike. The players will strike if. A lot of, I don't know what the specific demands that they would want are, but I'm trying to guess. Like, what do you think about that? Like this was the number one news yesterday.
Yeah, I saw it a couple times on my Instagram, but then like I said, I didn't really pay any mind to it. But it was so crazy when I saw it. But I think it's necessary because, unfortunately, in America, no one really cares unless it's a big platform that decides to strike on what's going on. Like, let's be real. When Black Lives Matter movement was hot on Twitter, the first time when George Floyd died, all the government, not necessarily all the government, but all like the mayors or all the people who are in head of like counties or cities, they decided to do like little things to kind of like, oh, here's some stuff so you can shut up. Like the whole, what was that stupid thing? They paved Black Lives Matter on a road, and everyone
painted.
Yeah, like they painted.
Oh, you said paved.
Oh, I apologize. They painted in yellow Black Lives Matter on some kind of road, and everyone's like,
a lot of roads.
Yeah, and everyone's like, yeah,
they're painting it here.
Stupid. Everyone's like, yeah, we love it. No, that's exactly what they want you to fall into.
Who's they?
Okay, they as in the people who are in charge of creating those little gifts to give to people.
Who's that?
That's the thing. I don't know. I don't know who decided, oh, like the mayor or, the governor. I don't know who decided to do it. But those people decided, let's give them a little bit of something that shows that, oh yeah, we care, but they don't really care.
How can you not name people but name their intent? Because
I know what happened with what's going on. Like I see the actions that happen. So I see when they decide to stop saying master bedroom, or they they do these little things, or like the Aunt Jemima pancakes. They removed that image and gave her another image that's updated but black. And I was like, no one cares. No one cares that that's what it was. People are trying to look for actual change, and that's what I was saying. They do these little things so that we think that it's okay, that things are going fine, and that we accept it. But until a big platform like the NBA does something like, let's say, for instance, striking, then everyone's like, oh shit, like this is intense.
I sort of agree. I mean, my opinion on the NBA is that, and not just the NBA, sports in particular, like I said, people go to sports as an escape from politics. It doesn't really matter that you do that. that's inherently wrong, because sports are intricately linked to politics, because the people playing in the sports are they are people. So they're inherently political. Look
Hmm.
back to Muhammad Ali. Look back to the, what is it, Summer Olympics of 19 whatever, when they rose their fists. You know what I'm saying? Like there's always been politics in sports. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like look at the original Olympics. Like those were political events just as much as they were like
I agree.
athletic and entertainment. So I don't think there's a divide between, I like, it doesn't basically matter to me what the spectator or fan is there for. It is inherently this. Um Now, I think that them, like, basically, one, I don't think them going into the bubble was the wrong decision,
Okay.
right? Because I feel like it elevated them onto a greater platform. I feel like while they were on that platform, it was semi weak, right? Like, so they had, like, on the court, they'd write like Black Lives Matter, and they had like their stuff on the back. They could write their own messaging on the back and stuff. And I thought all that, I don't know the extent of everything they did, but I just personally, I felt like all that was like real weak in terms of
Yeah.
like, all right. Like, same thing as like that Bill Burr skit where he's like at a baseball game or he's at a football game, and then they're like, a commercial comes in, it's like, hey guys, stop beating your wives. He's like, yo, it's not us who are beating our wives, it's y'all. It's the football players, it's not us.
No.
Right, who are beating our wives. Like, I
I
don't need to
think
hear this message.
the quote unquote Twitter, that's how I see it though. When I said the actions that the governors or mayors would do, I don't know the names of the
No,
governors
no,
and
no.
mayors.
When I said, I wasn't
Hold
talking
on.
about their names, I was saying like,
Well, yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying in general. And they do these actions that seem, in terms of the public eye, oh, this is so great, and it's similar to like Twitter activism in a way. But yeah, that's you continue.
what don't you like about them painting Black Lives Matter on the floor?
Because it's literally, they see what's going on. They're like, oh, we gotta do something, and they're like,
So what
yeah,
do you want them to do?
to have actual change in what's going on. Like,
What is actual change?
actual change is, I'm not saying to necessarily defund or add more money to the police force or whatever, because I don't know how that would work personally. But what I do know is that having reforms and having change in what's actually going on, what's wrong, like, you know what I'm saying? If there is a reform in terms of the education of police academy, if there is more restrictions on being a police officer, if there is teaching better ways of handling like de-escalating situations, whatever it is,
So
that
how is it done right now?
I don't know.
This is part of my issue, right? Is like, of my issue.
Hmm.
I don't know how police training is done. Like, if this is all about police and police training, I don't know how that's done. Is that something that's federally mandated? I don't think so. I think it's each, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's each municipality, whether that's at a state level or at a local level, they're the ones who are actually training their employees. So this change, like, it's not some sort of just from the head guys. Like, it's not like we're waiting for Donald Trump to be like, "Oh yeah, guys, here's some new rules. You guys teach all your new police officers this." Like, it's not that. There's a lot of other small changes that need to happen. And I agree, like, painting Black Lives Matter on the floor isn't gonna necessarily change the fact that some kid will get shot today, right? But it can change the fact that some kid gets shot 50 years from now. I do believe in the power of small symbolic changes having an impact, because I think that language and perception is valuable. So if you look at the monument debate, for instance, like, do you think that, like, monuments are stupid? I don't care who's on the monument, or do you think it matters who we erect monuments to?
That's fair in terms of symbolicness. That's fair in terms of statues and language and words. It's even very similar to, instead of chairman, it's chairperson.
Mm-hmm.
Fireman. They're gonna change. I'm not sure if they're gonna change it
What, fireman?
from fireman to fire person. Like it.
But what if I identify as an obstacle or an object?
Anyway, so I can understand that. I guess it becomes more frustrating when they try to do that and like literally like I remember what was it who's the create not creator but the company for band-aids. I forgot what it was, but
3M.
I don't know. They decided, all right, now because of what happened with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, we're gonna have band-aids with all skin colors. I, I was just like, that. Okay.
Okay, can we talk about that real quick?
Mhm.
I didn't know Band-Aids were supposed to be like
Skin
flesh
color.
colored,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't give a shit.
No one cares.
Like, to me, like that's lower than the level of like painting Black Lives Matter on the street because it's a medical device. Like that's like someone telling me like, yo, some sort of medical device I'm using is inherently. I'm like, bro, I don't give a fuck.
If it helps me,
Yeah, if it helps, it helps. You know,
that's what I was saying. I don't like the Black Lives Matter painting.
That's compute. That's
I don't like.
What is it? Purely aesthetic. That's
Yeah.
not. They're not like, yo, that if they came to me and they were like, you know what, Luffy, like the adhesion used on Band-Aids, like it tends to stick to like white people better because they only tested it when they were doing it on white people and they didn't factor in the fact that Black people have this higher prevalence of this natural oil in their skin and whatever, and like it tends to wipe it out fast. And I'd be like, okay, you know what? That like makes sense. But something purely aesthetic, I'm like, bruh.
So how do you feel about Aunt Jemima? With okay, so
It's disgusting.
In terms of the logo,
In terms of the syrup, it's disgusting.
no,
You should just
no.
use honey.
Anyway, what I'm saying is like, they decided because the old picture was a Black woman,
Mhm.
right? But it was a Black woman from when slavery was still around,
Mhm.
and they had that picture, and they decided to take it out and give it an upgraded new Black woman.
What does she look like now?
That's actually a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I remember what the old one looked like, but was the old one inherently racist? Like,
That's the thing. I don't. The thing is, the founder of the Aunt Jemima is a white man.
see, like this sort of looks like some slave stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This woman looks like a Black woman from 1970. That's what she looks like to me.
Exactly. So for me, I think that was just like similar to what you're saying, an aesthetic appeal. But in terms of change, yeah, a lot of people think that change is like Donald Trump has to say it and then everything is fixed. No, I think similar to what you're saying, there's a lot of factors of policing isn't well, it is in terms of, if Donald Trump has an executive order or has martial law, okay, cool. But for the majority of time, it's on a state or federal level, like you said. And that's where
State or local level.
I apologize. And that's where the change can actually happen. You know what I'm saying? That's where the reform can happen. That's where the focus should be.
So then, well, that's the issue. That's what I'm saying is the issue, though, is that we want change on a local. It's basically like we want like there's a lot of small changes that need to happen, aka like, and it's quote unquote it's a big change. But that's the thing is that it's because it's so many different localities. It's not just we need to change police training. It's like, yo, and that's like let me go back and like, give clarification right now again. I don't know shit about police training. I don't know how it's done, how it's organized, who handles it. You know what I don't know this shit. What I'm assuming is that each municipality handles the training on their own, right? And they're the ones who are like, yo, all right, you graduated, you can start working as a cop now, or a sheriff or whatever the hell it is. Those training systems individually and independently need to change, right? That's one. But then two, it's like, all right, you change the system that people are trained, but can you change people's inherent training, aka
Their upbringing.
they're biases. They're natural. We all have natural
Mm.
biases and inclinations towards things, right? So I can receive as much bias training and as much whatever training as I possibly can, right? And like, look at how many people walk around, or sorry, go around like Twitter and be like, they so woke, they so woke. And then they see a white person and they're like, oh, he's rich. It's like, that's your own bias that you just exhibited. You saying that, oh, look at all these people with their bias completely miss the fact that you hold a lot of natural biases too. So it's like, it's not just the system in which you're in, it's the individuals within that system. So this isn't, and that's why I'm like, okay, look, the NBA, they're bringing attention to the issue. And if this was something on a federal level or whatever, like I can see, and maybe it is, and I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, well, someone's gonna take this and think that I'm saying that the NBA, the players shouldn't have. I support people in general, and
Cancel Twitter is coming for you.
I don't give a shit about them. Hey, I'm not even on Twitter. Like, I don't care.
I am.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry for you.
Continue though.
So I don't. It's not that I don't believe that change can happen, right? But it's just that I think that if you're gonna strike, for instance, which they're doing, right, and I support, which I want to make clear too, like you need to have clear demands. Anytime you're striking, protesting, you need to have very clear, specific objectives and demands about what we're actually trying to do, so that we can, like, enact this change. And if your thing stops, the buck stops at we need police reform, that's too big of a goal objective, because what does that mean and what does it look like, and like the specifics of it? Because, and this is what I'm saying too, is like, even if you have police reform, like, so what? Like, what about people's natural biases, right? And this is the part where the real work happens, because it's very simple, in my mind at least, to change some training protocols. It's very simple to rewrite a new book that teaches people whatever, to extend your training period, to move funding. All that's very simple bureaucratic shit. How do you change the fact that this dude has some sort of bias against black people? How do you change the fact that this person feels less threatened by a female than by a male? You know what I'm saying? Like, like there's just certain biases that people have. How do we address them in the course of our normal actions, so that when an officer is out there working, they're not moving necessarily based off of all these inherent biases that they have? And we've talked about this before, although it's natural, they need to bring as much mindfulness into each situation as possible. Like, if someone, for instance, in this case, Jacob, right? You got shot in the back 7 times, going into your car with your kids in your car. I think a lot of times where I'm thinking like, yo, why didn't they just use a taser? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I always think. I'm like, yo, and tasers, I'm not going to say are non-lethal. Like, there's a chance that you can die from a taser too, but it's like, it's less lethal, right? Like, why is it constantly being escalated to this supreme, like, to this high level? And it could have nothing to do with their training. They might have been trained to use a taser in that instance, but if they felt threatened enough in that moment to escalate it to the level of gun, that might have been the difference. That might have been a difference of bias, where if that was a woman, they might have pulled out a taser, but because it's a man, they pulled out a gun. If they were white, they would have pulled out a taser, but because they're black, they pulled out a gun. How do we change that?
That's a really good question. I think having police reform, like, not even necessarily police reform, I think having smart goals on what objectives we want as Black Lives Matter movement is very crucial. Like saying defund the police and Black Lives Matter and, all these big catchphrases. Yes, I agree. Like, there's certain things I'm like, yeah, I agree on. But now let's break it down and let's actually showcase, what do we really want out of all these things. That's the one thing with protesting or striking that doesn't really get created, is smart goals. But in terms of eliminating biases or having these tests or whatever it is, so that we can figure out how do we make this a better system. That personally, I don't know, but I do think psychologically there should be some way. It doesn't have to be necessarily like a written test or whatever, but there should be a psychological base to see how much, biases everyone has in the department. So it could be,
You can take a bias test. Those exist.
yeah, but I feel like for a bias test, unfortunately, especially if it's like multiple choice or written, you can kind of finesse it your own way. So that's what I was saying. There should be a simulation or a rundown test that you don't tell let's say for instance like this. You don't tell the participants like why you're doing the test. It's like, oh, we're just running a simulation. All right, and go. And let's say for instance that they run into this corner. Oh, this person's getting I don't know. This person allegedly has a knife or a gun. What do you like? You have to.
Let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Do you think that the only defense against bias is to acknowledge our bias?
The only way to defense bias.
No,
is,
no. The only defense against bias.
Mhm.
So the only way to combat bias is to acknowledge our bias. Meaning,
Yeah.
like, the only way for me to like stop thinking that white people are rich is to know that I think white people are rich.
Yes.
Or is it okay? So from that's step one, I'm assuming, because there has to be a step where it's like you go out and you meet poor white people, right?
Yeah, and then and then you're like, whoa.
yeah, you know what I'm saying, and that's kind of what I'm saying, where it's like, all right, look, all this bias, and this is one of the biggest issues I had. Like, I worked in diversity and inclusion shit for a long time, like in human resources and in recruiting and stuff like that. And one of the biggest issues is that they would always like the buck stops at like awareness. It's like, okay, I'm aware I have these biases. Now I can challenge myself to bring mindfulness to stop it, but it's like, what does that actually mean and look like? And not even just that, it's a bias, which means that it's an inherent thing that I have to challenge at every moment I do it. So this is one, right? For instance, there's some women who have a bias towards black men, meaning that there's some women who are like, yo, I like black guys, right? So they have a bias towards black guys. When they move through society and they see a black male, their initial bias is attractive, or I want to look at this guy, or let me see how attractive he is, right? So they give that guy a chance before they give the white guy walking next to him a chance, right? Or it's, say, you see a lot of black men dating white women, right? They have a bias towards lighter skinned women. It might not be white women. It could be like a light skinned Latina. It could just be a lot of people, this is across the board. A lot of people have preference or a bias towards lighter skinned or fairer skinned people, right? So when they see a fairer skinned girl, they're like, wow, she's really attractive. You know what I'm saying? Off jump, without like even considering if they find her attractive, but because her lighter skin gave them that initial inclination. So it's like, you walk around, you're like, oh, I know I like light skinned girls, right? And you see a girl who's light skinned, you have to stop yourself and say in that moment, do I like you because you're light skinned? Is that what's attracting me to you? And all the socializations around being light skinned, or is it because you are attractive? I think that's something that's very difficult that we're asking of people, but it's necessary, because that's still only step one. You know what I'm saying? Like step one, I think, like you said, is acknowledge the biases that you have so that in the moment you can challenge yourself. But that's very difficult. I think the only way to challenge yourself is to move into yes, you can live in your conscious world and challenge yourself in each moment, but you should move to your subconscious world and interact with as many beautiful dark-skinned women as you can so that you can train yourself that dark skin doesn't mean ugly. There's beautiful dark-skinned women. And it's the same thing where it's like, if you have a bias where you're like, yo, black people are hood or whatever, what they should do as part of your training is like, yo, you got to go spend 3 months with some rich, educated black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, or if you think that like, Asian people are this, go spend some time with Asian people. So you can, like people are like, yo, Asian people are so good at math. It's like, bro, have you talked to some of them? Like these niggas just as dumb as we are. Like,
no, I 100% agree that experience not only eliminates these biases, you can have your preference. You know what I'm saying? And I know a lot of people that like, oh, I prefer light skinned women.
Oh,
I,
okay. Preference versus bias.
yeah, preference before, not preference before bias.
No, no,
but
I'm
preference.
asking you. What's the difference between
Oh,
preference
well, hold
and
on,
bias?
hold on.
Okay, okay.
You know, you can have these biases, but it needs to get to the point where it's not harmful to you. So like if I say black people can't swim, you know, that's a biases I have towards black people. But if I start seeing black people that swim, I now can be like, oh wait, that was something I thought of because of, and like similar to what you're saying, you have to go into your subconscious and find the root problem of when that was created. And you have to look back and see like, oh damn, I thought black people couldn't swim because my cousin couldn't swim and he was black. So I thought that all black people couldn't swim, but now that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? You understand it. But preference versus bias, I think preference is, it's like a choice. You know what I'm saying? It's an opinion that you have, and that is perfectly okay. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to have, let's say for instance, and I don't agree with this, but I was like, you know what? I do like lighter skinned women and I do like white women. Black women are cool. All the other races are cool, but I just prefer light skinned women or white women. That is perfectly okay.
That's okay.
That's okay until you decide saying, I like white/light skinned women because I hate dark skinned women. That's when it doesn't become okay.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So that instant.
Hold on. Let's parse through this idea like slowly, man. Because so you're saying that the having a preference towards something is okay, but it's when you have an opposite dislike towards the other group that it becomes an issue.
Yes.
So in the negative, it's bias and preference isn't okay, but in the positive, it's okay. That's what you're saying. Okay, wait. Let's just make sure that.
All I said was yeah.
What?
No, I said yeah, and you said hold on. I was just saying yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah. I'm just saying like don't move on from like so. Let's hold on to this point. So if I'm trying to think this through, like if you're a cop, for instance, and you have a preference towards white people, and you help them out because they're white, right? That's okay. As long as you don't not help out the black people because they're black.
Yes. Because,
and I know I use the weird example.
Yeah, but it's important that you use that example because it's very similar. Let's say, for instance, a black police officer. He's more inclined to help out people who are black, right? But that shouldn't eliminate him being like, oh, I'm not going to help white people out because they're A, B, and C. No, like, yeah, you can have a preference of your own people. That is not, like, I don't think that's racist whatsoever. Like, you having...
So a white person, I want to ask this too, because this was the next natural thing I was going to ask. So if a white person or an Asian person, black person, whatever, is like, I only want to marry a white person, Asian person, black person, that's not racist?
No, like, that's the thing. Like, let's say, for instance, with marriage, right? Like, for me personally, I only want to marry a black...
Date.
Like,
you can use the word date.
Well, date, because I'm pretty young. I want to date a black, African, or Caribbean kind of woman.
Why?
Because that's my preference.
But isn't that... So this is... So you're basically making the argument in a roundabout way almost that bias is okay. I mean, you said it quite explicitly, so it's not even in a roundabout way. You think bias is okay. I mean, I agree. I think bias is... Here's the thing is that, I don't know, might be the differentiation, right? I think bias is natural, right? I think stereotyping, I think having natural biases, I think these are all natural human functions. We've talked about this on the podcast when we had Wad before. It's a mechanism that allows you to move through life quicker by making quicker decisions about things, because you can't at every moment decide, hey, is this good, bad, blah, blah, blah. You rely on past experiences. It's just a matter of what is the summation of those past experiences. The reason I guess I don't like when people say, I want to date this sort of person. So like even though I agree with the bias, like, and you have people have biases. I think the reason I don't like when people say like, oh, I only want to date black women, Asian men, this Latino woman, whatever. Like, I think my issue with that is that I think it's too restrictive. Like, I think it's too, and maybe that's just my opinion. Maybe that has no bearing on whether, like, on the morality of it, on where I think about it morally. But it always just struck me as to be honest, it just always struck me as racist, where I was just like, why would you only date one, two races of people? Like, why would you cut off millions of potential like people that you could
That's
form a
fair.
partnership with?
That's a good way of talking about restriction, because I do believe inherently that you shouldn't block it off like, oh, I only want to date these three races and that's it, right? For me, my preference personally is black slash African American. That's number one. Second is Caribbean, like that kind of area. Um, and then everyone else kind of follows along the line, right? But does that mean, oh, I would never date a white person? Oh, I would never date a Asian person? No, if it permits, if I'm attracted to that person, okay, that's cool. But that's what I was saying. I think it's important that we don't say, and I used this earlier in this episode. I said only. We shouldn't use only date or only, because words are powerful. You know what I'm saying? If you say only, then you have already eliminated everything else.
So the preference is the bias, right? Your decision to acknowledge it is the bias training. And then in each moment, that's you challenging yourself or doing the work. So by you not saying I only date black women, by you saying my preference is for black women, but in this case, a beautiful, lovely like Latina woman, for instance, comes by, or white woman, or whatever sort of woman comes by, and you're like, oh, I actually like this person. It doesn't. My preference is for you. And it's not, in regards to these matters, like, I had a preference in the same way that a cop, and I always want to go back to the cops because bias is bias, right? Like, whatever we say has to stand true across the different domains. It's the same as a cop saying, like, I know that I was raised in a certain way to think a certain thing about black people, right? I acknowledge that, and that's okay as long as in each moment and in my interactions with black people and white people, I ask myself, am I doing this because it's right, or am I doing this because of my bias?
Yeah.
Okay.
100% agree.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what else to talk about, to be honest. I'm very tired.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, you go deeper on this topic. There's a lot of things we didn't touch upon, but
I don't know. I feel like we've kind of said, in my opinion, the important topics of everything that needs to be said.
No. I think we can go way deeper on this.
That's fair. That's the thing. I'm not thinking of it in the same way that you are.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not like deep into it. Like, I'm like at a surface level / midway kind of thing. I'm not like deep into it. Because when you proposed the question, it seemed that you were very like, this has been on your mind.
What?
The introductory topic of what is it called?
There's no way it was on my mind. It just happened 12 hours ago. And I slept like a baby last night. I can tell you that.
I don't know.
Nah, it wasn't on my mind. It was just I mean, what's the point of having basic conversations? Like, I mean, if people wanted to, like, anyone could go listen to, people talk about bias, and anyone can go. But if you don't break stuff down all the way, like, to the level like that we were, and even keep it there and take it across different domains and stuff, like, you never develop insight. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
You always just stay at the level of knowledge, like, which is like, something, just like we were talking about bias. It's like, something, but so what? Like, there's so many people who move in the pursuit of knowledge. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all right, cool. But knowledge is just one dot. And it's like, all you got to connect that dot with other dots, or you got to, if you brighten up. I saw a picture, it was great. It was like, there's dots, that's knowledge. There's a bright dot, that's wisdom. But if you start to connect different bright dots, now you have insight into a system. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's what I try to do a lot of times. That's why I was saying that we have to take it from relationships to police. Because if we're saying something is true, that means it's true in any domain. It doesn't matter if we're talking about relationships or if we're talking about policing or if we're, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why you got to dive down that deep and differentiate between bias and preference and this and that and whatever. Because otherwise,
well, as a question then, how do you gain insight? Because I agree that a lot of people search for knowledge and everyone's very thirsty for understanding and knowing things. But how does someone gain insight?
I think from having a life well lived.
How so?
Like I was just saying, like, knowledge is just data. Knowledge is the accumulation of data. So it's like, this is a knowledgeable person. This person knows a lot of information. They can, resuscitate it, recite it back to you. I don't know, resuscitate it. No,
resuscitating is when,
that's why I was like, I don't think that's the word, but they can recite it back to you. The knowledge, right? Someone who knows something deeply, right, on another level, you call this person wise. You like, oh, this dude has some wisdom about certain things. And you notice that that's what differentiates wisdom from insight, is that wisdom is always about a certain topic. Like, this person's really, has some great wisdom about life or about business or about relationship or whatever. Like, and it's usually because that person lived or has gone through a lot of relationships, a lot of businesses, whatever it is. This person has great wisdom on this topic. But when someone's able to connect the topics across different domains, and that's why I said to gain insight, you have to have a life well lived. It requires you to take a fundamental truth about life and convey it through the lens of a relationship and through the lens of a professional endeavor and through the lens of your friends and through the lens of your spiritual life. Because in that way, they show you that this is a truth that exists outside of whatever domain you capture within it. This is something that holds true throughout, and you can see the dots connecting. So I think to gain insight, because you don't gain insight on a topic, you gain knowledge about a topic, you eventually become wise, and then you gain insight by connecting those pieces of wisdom. Because there's so many contradictory truths in life that if you just stopped at the level of wisdom, you might be right here but wrong over here, right? Like, it's simultaneously true that A exists and B exists. That's like this stuff happens all the time in life. I'm trying to think of something right now, like live in the moment, save for the future, right? Both of them are absolutely true.
Oh yeah, when they speak about
money, for
money,
instance.
yeah.
It's like, yo, you have to live in this moment. You don't know, and like, yo, that's 100% true.
But you also got to save for the future.
But you also have to save for the future, right? And it's like both of those things. And that's where wisdom fails.
Okay.
Where you need someone who has some sort of insight, so that they can find to you what is the ultimate truth. These are two subjective truths. What is the objective truth in this scenario?
In terms of insight, what kind of insight have you gained on your spiritual side? Because, like you were saying, insight is not only just from one topic of life, but it counts for everything. You know what I'm saying? Your relationships, your life, your lifestyle, whatever it is, like, that's what insight is. You are able to speak these truths for all of them. It might not be objective. It might not be similar to what you're saying, a contradictory truth, but all around, they all make sense. It all makes sense. So in terms of your spiritual world, what kind of insight have you learned?
Love always wins.
Hate will never win.
Is that what you were thinking?
I was thinking of the song.
What song is
There's a
that?
song called "Hate Will Never Win,"
Oh,
or "Hate Will Never Win."
who's that by?
XXX Tentacion.
Oh, that's probably why I never heard it.
Yeah, probably. It's a really good song. It's a really good song. And it was that was right when the Charlottesville riots were going on. And I think he released that song around then. He was pretty much talking about like, you know, people that are higher up don't want to admit to like the wrongdoings of others. And he was saying like, regardless, like humanity, like one thing I believe is that humanity will always win in terms of love, in terms of good energy. As much as the media wants to portray that the world is pretty much ending now because of what's going on, I refuse to believe it. I believe that there is a new awakening. I believe that there is good, positive forces that are creating right now.
Dope. We'll top off this shit.
That's why I want to top it off.
Yeah.
Like that's my insight, but you never gave me your you gave me your insight with saying love.
What do you mean? I was
My
like,
bad.
you asked me first, bro.
love will win. Yeah. That's kind of what I wanted to say.
All right, let's hop off this shit, bro.
Go ahead.
All right, y'all. It's the Brotherly Love Podcast. This is Luffy.
This man's whack, and this is Ahmed.
Why am I whack? Hold on, bro. We not logging off yet. Why am I whack?
Hey, yo, what's up, bro? My name is Luffy.
Hey, screw you, bro.
Nah, this is Ahmed.
And Luffy.
And this is the Brotherly Love Podcast. Thank you guys for listening.